Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Shannon Crawford with 7MCulture. And today I have an awesome opportunity to hear from Moses Uvere. He is a performing artist. He's a rapper. He writes his own songs, and a lot of them have to do with family and life experience and his journey. And he's also in the process of being sent out to launch a church. So he's on several mountains. Right now, I've just said the performing arts, on the mountain of family, and the mountain of religion. And so he is tackling all three in really ninja strategic kingdom ways. And I think it'll be fun to hear from him of, as an artist in this generation, how do you stay true to your faith while still being incredibly relevant and fun and innovative in your art?
Yeah. First and foremost, Dr. Shannon, what up? Thank you for letting me be on here. This is really dope, and I'm really excited to do this. So I
Oh,
want to start there and just say thank you. I'm grateful, sincerely.
thanks.
Mm. Yeah. So I think it really starts with accepting whether or not you are called to be in the arts, as
Mhm.
far as the marketplace. Some people are called to make art because it's just an extension of who they are as a human being. They got to eat, they got to sleep, they got to make art. It's just an extension.
Yeah.
But being called to the marketplace of creating art, selling art,
Mhm.
communicating messaging on a wider scale, that is a calling. I think it starts there. For me, growing up as a kid, as a young kid, I was the oldest of my family. I was always kind of like the leader around my friends and my family members. Or I was always in pockets of groups where I was either with the most popular kids or we were with the kids that made a lot of ruckus playing sports, or we made a lot of ruckus making music. I was always in these like
Mhm.
communities of groups where people were paying attention to what I was doing. So that'd be the first thing is identifying, okay, what's happening in my life right now that
Mhm.
connects to where I want to go. That was the big thing for me. I noticed that I got nominated for like Homecoming King when I was younger, and I didn't win, but I got nominated. And then I was just always in these popular groups where people were noticing me. So I
Mhm.
knew that there was a calling for me to be public.
Mhm.
I didn't know what that would extend into or what that would look like, but I, I started there by just paying attention to my life and noticing, okay, there's something going on here. Um, the other, obviously, this goes before what I just said, but you do need to kind of bathe these things in prayer. So you need to
Mhm.
prayerfully be
Yeah.
saying, God, I notice this about myself,
Mhm.
um, and I just need to know, like, is this where you want me to go? And be okay with the fact that you might not get the full answer. And be okay with the fact that like you are still exploring, because
Mhm.
that's kind of the process of discovering your purpose and your calling, is that it is an exploration, it is a journey. So bathing all of these experiences in prayer is going to be first and foremost. Secondly is going to be noticing your
Yeah.
just where you're at in your sphere of influence. Like,
Mhm.
are you that kid that is very talented and so, or are people drawn to you in a certain way, and just being honest
Mhm.
with yourself about that. It took me a while to get honest with myself about being someone that draws people near to me, because I
Mhm.
felt like that was a little pretentious. um
Mm.
and I had to work through accepting the fact that, like, for some reason I just attract people towards me, and I don't know why, but it's just something in me that God put in there, and it took
Yeah.
me a while to just be honest with that. um the other would be participation. So, like, trying things and participating in things in safe
Yeah.
environments,
Yeah.
inviting the Holy Spirit to lead you while
Mhm.
you're participating in those things. So for me,
Yeah.
I got around people that made music, and I just stepped out and tried it, and
Mhm.
people were affirming that gift. And so that was the other thing, was um, paying attention to what people are saying about what you
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah.
And all of those things begin to build a foundation and an understanding for me that, okay, I'm supposed to do this.
Mhm.
So I had to get to that place, and it took multiple steps was saying, with me believing in myself and saying yes, as far as the music thing.
That's so good. And what if somebody's come from a background where they didn't have people encourage them and they've kind of been the person that was the runt and they were invisible and yet they have like something in them that feels like I want to perform? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say that I relate with that as well.
Mhm.
That even though I was in places where people were affirming my gift, some of the people that were the closest to me were saying like, "Man, you're actually way better doing this. You should do this."
Mhm.
And so I had to actually, once again, interact with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And I know for some that may be watching this, you may not know what the Holy Spirit is, but if I can explain it in a few words, I would say he is a counselor and a guide and an advocate for you.
Mhm.
And just inviting counsel from God, and and coming from a place where you're saying, "Hey, God, I just need advice. I need leadership." So for a point in time, even though I had people around me that were affirming my gift, the people that were the closest to me were like, "Man, this is a little scary. This is a little dicey. Making
Yeah.
rap music, making Christian rap music, that's a
Mhm.
little scary. Go get a college education. Go do these things." Like everyone was saying that kind of stuff,
Sure. Yeah.
and I had to make a decision at that point, which was to really consider their counsel, like really hear
Mhm.
it, really listen to it,
Yeah.
but then place it up against what the counsel of the Holy Spirit was telling me. So I just
That's
asked
good.
God in my heart and say, "God, I'm hearing this from people I love,
Mhm.
but I know you love me.
Yeah.
So what does this look like?" And the answer to that was, in the eyes of the people I love, it was defiance. And that is scary.
Yeah. Breaking
That is,
fear of man and people pleasing. Oh, that's hard.
yes, it is very
Mhm.
difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm in a season right now where I'm having to work through that once again,
Mhm.
um, with planting a church. So yeah, when I got to the place where I recognized, okay, I'm just going to do this because, and this may look like defiance, and trusting that I heard the voice of God, and
Yeah.
trusting that what was going on inside of my head and inside of
Yeah.
my heart, like that expression was a, I needed to, the only way I could be able to pull that expression forth into the realm of the world that I'm living in
Mm.
was to just move. And to, even though the only place I saw it was where my eyes were closed, and I
Mm.
just followed it. And I told myself, look, I'm going to follow it for a little while, and it should produce fruit.
Yeah.
If it doesn't produce fruit, then I know that, hey, maybe I misheard God on that, and I was going to eat it. I was going to be
Mhm.
willing to say, "Oh, my bad. Maybe I
Yeah.
didn't hear God." Like,
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah. Obedience is risk.
Yes, it really is. So that's what I would
Mhm.
say to anybody that may not have the encouragement, is to trust the power of the Holy Spirit. He uses your mind, your brain, your thoughts,
Yeah.
and your giftings. You start talking in those places, your mind, your brain, your spirit, your heart, like you start talking, things are going to speak up and talk back.
Mhm.
And not everything is good. So you still have to ask, like, okay, where is this coming from? Where are these thoughts, where are these
Yeah.
imaginations, these reasonings, where they're coming from?
Mhm.
And they'll speak, and some of them are bad and some of them are
Mhm.
good. And
Yeah. So there's definitely going to be resistance and opposition. Somehow, a lot of times we think that if I have a calling or a passion, that it would be kind of delivered in a gold platter and people are just going to tap me on the shoulder and invite me into spaces. And usually it's quite the opposite. We go into character formation and process and sanctification, and it's like, what? I thought I was going in this direction, and now it's the opposite. What is happening?
powerful. And I want to encourage that, it is okay to make people mad. And
Hmm.
I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to say that any other way,
Sure.
but um, there is a level of you just have to accept the fact that, man, not everyone is going to understand this.
Yeah.
And for me, coming out of high school, I graduated in top 30% of my class. I could have got a scholarship anywhere in academics. I
Hmm.
chose to go to a junior college because I wanted to be close to my friends so I can make rap music. And that was literally like crazy because
Yeah.
I could have went anywhere,
Hmm.
and got paid to go to school. And it was just, it didn't make sense. But there was
Yeah.
something in me saying that this was meant for me.
Yeah.
Um, and to anybody out there that might have
Hmm.
like an aspiration or a calling, you have to defy the voices that are in your head. You have to defy
Hmm.
the voices that are around you. There
Yeah.
is a level of defiance. Jesus had to do it.
Yeah.
Jesus was in the synagogue learning from the same rabbis, from the same
Mm.
Pharisees, from these very intellectual thinkers. He was learning from them, and then
Yeah.
10 years later had to defy them. So that's even deeper, you
Yeah.
know. And
Absolutely.
so it is part of the way that Jesus has laid out for us. Is
Yeah.
and defiance is a strong word. I mean, that might not be the best word, but that's kind of how it feels sometimes.
Yeah, like you have to stand your ground. If you feel God has said something to you, I'm thinking even of Moses in the Old Testament, how
Yeah.
he had family members, like his
Yes.
brother and
Yes.
sister, right? And
Yes.
they were like, you shouldn't have married that girl. So there was some
Yes.
racism. There was putting him down. Who does he think he is? He's not the only one that hears from God. And so there's
Yes.
family strife. Sometimes, to your point, it may be the people closest to us who say things that can be really deflating and discouraging. And I still have to stand on what God told me and what my heart is just knows that I know, even when I may have some discouraging events or comments that it would be hard to get back up and keep going anyway.
That's powerful. I used to hear old school folks say, "You just know and you're nowhere." You
Hmm.
know, you know and you're nowhere. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
you that And yeah, we don't have enough language in the English space to be able to articulate what the nowhere is. Or
Right.
the best place I can be able to say is like mind, spirit, soul, emotions. That
Hmm.
space
Yeah.
is where these decisions have to be made,
Mm.
and that's the space that we are actually meant to live our entire lives from. That is where all the fruit and all the benefits that Jesus
Hmm.
is talked about in the Bible is going to be dropped in those places. And yeah, and part of that is just being willing to be okay and forsake what the outside appearance may look like,
Yeah.
and how it might not look pretty and glossy, and how it might not
Mhm.
look like what um, you see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
That's so good. So good. So let's say now the person knows that they know and they're nowhere, they're going forward. How do you maintain your faith, your integrity, character, and stay grounded when success starts to come?
yeah, so for me, this was there's some lessons you're gonna learn in a book. You'll read it in a book, you'll grab it, you'll move through it. But there's some
Mhm.
lessons that you're only going to get through experience.
Mhm.
Um, and at a very early age, I was on TV rapping. I was rapping at 16 years old. So I'm pulling up to my high school, and people saw me on the news at 16, and it's over for me. Everybody knows who I am. Like, and so from 16 years old till where I'm at now, I have always had like a camera or a microphone or something like that in front of me. Either me rapping in it or talking about what God has done through the rap music.
Wow.
And I was not prepared, but in a way I was. um, in a way I was. And um, some of the things I had to learn was just through experience. I had to sometimes just endure saying the wrong things, or
Mhm.
not being fully present, or not paying attention, and
Mhm.
taking some of those lumps and taking those into my next expressions. Um, the other is actually being willing to listen to people
Mhm.
when they are talking about what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
At the time, I had signed a record deal when I was like 23, 24 years old. At that point, I had put out one album. I went on two national tours, and in that time, I started doing music. When I was 16, I didn't start doing it professionally
Mhm.
until I turned 20 years old. I was in Bible college at Christ for the Nations in Oak Cliff.
Ah.
Yeah, so I was attending that school,
Awesome.
and I was making music just kind of a little bit at a time, and then I put forth an album in that season at while I was at that school,
Mhm.
and all my college friends took it and just communicated it to the world, and it just blew up for me more than I could handle. So some of the things I learned was I needed to um, get around really that people that who loved me,
Yeah.
really loved me and didn't care about the fact that I was a popular rapper. And it
Mhm.
took some time for me to
Yeah.
find that because I was a popular musician at a very young age.
Mhm.
So it took me a while to find who were the ones that were really, really writing for me.
Yeah.
So that was one. Of course, there was experience that I had to take with me, like I mentioned. The other was slowing down and inviting the presence of God.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the middle of like, hey, we want you to do this and do that and rap here and rap there, and we need you to put out another album. When you're in the middle of those things, it gets really, really fast, and you get a little spun out,
Yeah.
or you can. And
Sure.
so, really slowing down, creating actual healthy rhythms,
Mhm.
and scheduling time to be with God uh, in the middle of that heightened season for me would have saved me so much. I
Yeah.
was kind of talking to God while I was on a plane to Tallahassee, or talking to God while I was in the car on the way to an event, or talking to God while I was in the green room and having to get on in like 10 minutes. And he sustained me through that season. But
Yeah.
what I've learned now is schedule, like creating a schedule, literally creating
Mhm.
a routine for me just to be with
Yeah.
God would have really changed things for me. So those are probably the three big things is
Yeah.
some of the stuff you're gonna have to learn, just getting your head knocked, getting a little knock on the head,
Mhm.
inviting good people to be around you and
Yeah.
taking the time to work those relationships, seeking
Mhm.
people out, paying attention to what they're saying,
Mhm.
and then scheduling, really creating routine. That
Yeah.
would have really, really helped me in those times when things start getting really crazy, and success was like, you know, crouching at the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say in discernment? Because there's some who are like, they will tell you anything you want to hear to make you feel good because they're kind of a hanger oner and they want to be famous by association by hanging out with you. And then there's those who really have your vision for your ministry, your calling, what you're going into. And at first, both can feel very complimentary and it feels nice. And so it can kind of be discernment like, how do I grow in recognizing who's the person who's there for the fishes and the loaves for themselves? And who are those that really have vision for where you're going and they want to stand with you and maybe even be a watchman on the wall of your life who can
That's good.
speak into some of those blind spots that you may not be seeing as you're so macro in the moment.
Yeah, and this is so what I'm about to say is so cliche, and I hate that it's become this way,
Sure.
but this is the only way I've discovered the best way to grow in your discernment is you have to ask God every time about every person. Every
Hmm.
time, every person.
Yeah.
Should I do this? Who is this person?
Hmm.
God, is this someone that has my best interest? And I know that people are saying, we'll probably hear that. And if you've been a Christian for a long time, your grandma's probably told you that. And for some people that may not know the Lord, they may say,
Yeah.
man, everything? Like I ask him about everything. And it's like, yes, that's exactly what he died for.
Hmm.
It's what he died for. He
Yeah.
he literally died to
Yeah.
be a part of every important and integral moment of our lives,
Yeah.
every portion. So
Yeah.
it's actually become a spiritual rhythm and a spiritual practice that I'm trying to incorporate. Is when I meet new people or
Hmm.
when I go into new settings, am I supposed to be here? Who is here to protect me? Who is here not to
Hmm.
protect me?
Yeah.
Um, who am I supposed to love? Who am I supposed to bless? Those are the questions that I'm asking when I enter into new spaces and new
Yeah.
environments. And again, if you're speaking from that place where your heart, your mind, emotions, and your soul, if you're speaking from that place,
Yeah.
there will be voices that talk back. There's no way around it. And that is the only strategy I have to be able to make it through
Yeah.
navigating those places.
Hmm.
And I have learned that through not asking those questions and just
Hmm.
doing things because it felt good, and then was like, oh man, these people are literally just using me as a resource to accomplish their thing. Or, oh man, like they're asking way too much of me. They asked me to do one thing, now they're asking me to do 10 things, and I've already
Hmm.
committed to the one thing.
Yeah.
So now I kind of got to do at least two or three of the other things. Like,
Hmm.
and all of that could have been avoided for me if I stopped,
Yeah.
waited, and said, God, Holy Spirit, the advocate, counselor, give me wisdom right now. Do I go into this room? Do I talk
Yes.
to this person? And now here's the challenging part is when you hear that impression or voice speak to
Mm.
you and say, no, don't go. What has saved me so much is being able to have one person that is accountable over my schedule. So
Mm.
before I got married, it was my DJ,
Mhm.
and so I got to be able to utilize him as a scapegoat and be like, "Hey, I know that I said yes to this, but my DJ is telling me that we probably shouldn't do this." And
Mhm.
so he and I work together. I can't go any spaces without him, so I can't go. Then when I got married, I can be able to. I usually utilize my wife on that all the time. I'm like, hey, my
Mhm.
wife says I gotta stay home, so I need to stay home, and
Mhm.
that's why people are so important, and that's why doing this together in community is
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, sorry, that
Yeah.
was a lot, but
No, it's so good. And I think that you'll also have to fight your flesh because there's an immediate gratification part of our personality that I may want to do that. And if I'm genuinely asking the Lord and He's like, no, not now, not for whatever reason, it's just either a no or just a wait. That means I really have to trust His goodness that if He's saying no, it's not a no forever. It's a hold, it's a pause, it's a, hey, something could be funky or it could double book you. So, how do you cultivate your trust that there's a passion in front of you, somebody's asking you, there's an opportunity, and to really hear from the Lord and then obey, even though it may be the opposite of what you would love to do, because it seems like a great opportunity in front of you?
wow, that's a powerful question. I am not good at this, so I want to be honest. I am not
None of
good
us
at
are.
this. um, and this is what happened to me is I learned this bad habit from one of my friends who, when I was early in my faith of a believer, because my faith and my music career kind of moved at the same time, and so I was getting on stages and platforms talking about a God that I was still kind of getting to know,
Yeah,
honestly.
that's fair. Yeah.
And one of the advices that I got is one of my friends said, "Hey, just say yes to everything. Say yes to everything, and then sort it out later." And at the time, I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And but the reality is, you don't have time. I found out that I never had time to sort it out later.
Yeah.
I never had time. There was never a later.
Yeah.
And then I always committed to all these yeses. So there so I had to get very, very strategic, and I'm not a very strategic person. I'm a person that kind of
More fluid.
uh, yeah, more fluid. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist, so it's like I express things from my heart. It's
Yep.
not always polished. um and so what I've had to learn is I need to become more strategic. And so um so I have like a framework of things that if someone says, hey, I want you to do this, it has to kind of check off three really important things for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to give me rest is one. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
restful for me to do it. It has to be fruitful for me. And fruit is not measured necessarily in money. Sometimes it is. But it needs to be able, I need to be able to walk away from it and say, okay, we were able, I was able to see the essence of God in this thing. Um, and so it needs to be restful, it needs to be fruitful, and it needs to uh, accommodate my family. It needs to accommodate my family.
Yeah. It's
Those are the
good.
three. Those are the three things that have to fall into place for me to say yes now.
Yeah.
And so I'll bring my emotions and be like, "Wow, man, I'm so grateful. Yes, like thank you." Like I'll
Sure.
bring my heart to it,
Yeah.
but then I'll just say, "Hey, I need to talk to my manager," or "Hey, I need to talk to my wife," and I'll get back to you. And then I'll
Yeah.
either talk to my manager or I'll talk to my DJ or my wife, and then we'll filter it through those three things.
That's
Um,
good.
and so I would encourage anybody that
Mm,
is like me, that is led by their emotions, has their heart on their sleeve. Get that one person that you can be able to just talk
yeah.
these things through.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And I like the safeguard of it because if I'm just saying yes and I'm just like, hey, Holy Spirit, what do you think? And I don't hear anything and I just kind of move forward versus you're already building in safeguards of saying, hey, let me pause and let me get back to you, which gives you more time to step away from just emotion, which is part of the soul, and maybe hear from your spirit man, which is actually where the Holy Spirit speaks to us. And that's deep knowing that's apart from just enthusiasm or dread. There's also opportunities God may want us to walk forward. And I'm like, I can't, that's impossible, that's scary, it's overwhelming, or it's not in my wheelhouse. So you want me to go where and do what? And that's also an emotional response that could shut down something that I'm not hearing from my spirit because my soul is so loud. And so I like the strategy of creating some margin to say, let me pause, let me consult. And in that time, you're also getting away from just the immediate emotion so that you can hear the still small voice of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I had to learn that the hard way. And for some reason, people that love me the most are the type of people that say no to everything. Those are those are the people that love me the most. My wife, she's gonna tell you no before she tells you yes. And she always says like, it's easier to
Yeah.
come back from a no than it is from a yes. That's how she lives.
That's good.
And and she's a very strategic thinker in that. So she's gonna always say no, but then she'll be like, you know what, I thought about it. Like, actually, I can make that happen. And
Mm,
learning from her, because I don't like to tell people no. So I just found the balance in that
mm,
of I'm gonna honor the fact that they asked me,
mm.
because it is an honor that
Yeah.
another human being would ask another human being like myself to share a portion or an expression of my life.
Mm,
I look at that as sacred. I look at that as beautiful. Some
mm.
people are not that way, but that is the way I am.
Yeah.
And so I want people to feel that. Like the fact that you asked me, like I am grateful.
Mm,
And so at anything, and part of that is the people pleaser slash like I don't know, helper in me.
mhm.
And the Enneagram kind of helped me figure out what that was for
Yeah.
me, and realizing like, man, I want people to feel my emotions, good and bad, and working through that. But then my wife, she isn't that way. So her bringing that balance, my DJ isn't that way. He's one of my best friends. Him
Mm,
bringing that balance, one of my early managers, he isn't that way. They're very strategic, more heavy
yeah.
thinkers, and they
Yeah.
love the snot out of me, but they push me not to be so emotional. And
Yeah.
so putting myself in those relationships helped me develop this area of my discernment.
That's good. Yeah.
And it was hard. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, these
Yeah.
people love me and I love them, but man, they
Getting
kicked my butt.
told no.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think maybe not a lot of people know who it is, but his name is Arthur Burke. And he talks about how your spiritual gift is wired into your actual personality. And so your gifting and your personality are kind of flowing in one way, which obviously creates a lot of blind spots. And how the Lord would always send out disciples in twos, because at least, in Ecclesiastes, it said it's better that two walk together. If one fall, the other one can pick us back up. And so
Okay.
he would talk about how a lot of times God will put a prophet personality, which is more that no visionary strategy, thinker, linear, with the pastoral. And the pastor tends to be more like shepherding and helping and wants to say yes and always available. And they can burn themselves out because they're trying so hard. And so he'll often put people who are our opposite together. And that can be really hard because in the flesh and the natural, that can kind of rub against what I want. And I want you to just see it my way and agree with me. And it can be really frustrating. So I'm assuming you've never had that experience, but maybe if other people have had an experience where working with somebody who's your opposite and maybe having that person as your accountability in any capacity, What are some things you would say? Here's some things that I've learned along the way that may help to protect the friendship when our gifts are so fundamentally different, and yet they complement our own blind spots that we don't realize we have until we have somebody to point those out.
That's so good. Yeah, for me, it's always just been honor, and my background is that my family is originally from Nigeria, and
Oh,
both of my parents are, and but we were born here in America, me and
uh-huh.
six of my siblings, and so growing up, I grew up in this like dual. I have this real dual citizenship
Yeah,
thing in me.
like a
So in
culture
my
shock.
household, it was just like African music, African foods, but then
Mhm.
we go outside and it'd be skateboarding, pizza, rap music,
Yeah.
very American. And in our culture, honor is a big deal. And what honor simply looks like is listening to someone, saying, I'm going to consider your interest above yourself.
Wow.
And that's just it. It's just
Yeah.
that's literally what it looks like. Um, so for me as a hip hop artist, and being in music spaces and being in creative spaces, um, the God was very gracious and sent people that really loved me,
Mm.
um, and was definitely my opposites in that space. But
Mhm.
I it was ingrained in me to consider their interest above my own,
Wow.
um, always, and that is what honor looks like. I come to later find that out that it was in Philippians 4. Paul was teaching that to the churches in Philippi about we should do that, but that was just part of the way I grew up.
Yeah.
And so I would the only way I can see it is honor is through the lens of honor and taking that aspect of these this is the way I feel. It's real.
Mhm.
It's truthful to me. It's sincere. But just for a moment, placing that aside, taking on the interest of my homie Oscar, who's my DJ, and who will say, Moses, I'm not feeling that. Or my wife, Mallory, who will say, Moses, I can't get with that. And just taking that on for a minute, taking that
Mhm.
on like, okay, what if I did operate in what they're saying? What would that produce? What kind of fruit would that produce in my life? What kind of rest would that produce in my life? How does
Mm.
that help my family? Then
Yeah.
going back and saying, okay, what about what I want to do? Does that produce fruit in my life? Does that
Yeah.
produce rest? Does it care for my family?
Yeah.
Those three, and it's easy to see it with
Mhm.
those questions to see like, okay, they were right again.
Dang it. So I have a
um,
question, because if I were
yeah,
listening, I would be like, rest, that sounds like putting my feet up and watching Netflix and eating chips. So what do you mean when you say rest? And how can somebody practice that litmus test for themselves when they're going, rest doesn't necessarily mean taking a nap. It means what?
yeah. For me, it just oh man, this is a very spiritual thing to articulate. Okay, because it's like, yo, it's crazy. Because rest is very spiritual. Putting your
Yeah.
feet up and watching a television show isn't restful. You're relaxing,
Mhm.
and that's different than what real rest is. So it kind of starts with me understanding who I am. Um,
Mhm.
this might be hard to believe, but it is true. I tell people this all the time that I had to ask myself, where do I gain energy from? Do I gain
Mhm.
energy being with people, or do I gain energy being away from people?
Yeah.
That question is what leads me into rest. And so I learned that I gain energy when I'm away from people, but I love people. That's where I'm at. So I consider myself a very, very high functioning introvert.
An outgoing
You know,
introvert.
yes, I would consider myself a very outgoing, very high functioning introvert.
Yeah.
So when I learned, so I had to take time and learn what that is. So I would
Mhm.
encourage anybody that's listening to this is ask that question: do you gain energy being with people? Do you gain energy being away from people?
Mhm.
So that question, then I realize I bring that into. my expression of doing music,
Yeah.
and creating art and saying yes to anything. So I'll look at my week and I'll say, man, I've been with a lot of people this week. If someone's asking me to speak at a church or to do officiate a wedding or something like that, I'm gonna say no to this because I've been with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And or the event that I met you at, that was the first time that I got in front of a crowd of people and rapped in almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And yes, because of the pandemic and
Sure,
everything
sure.
like that. And so I was able to say, well, would this give me rest? Well, yes, I've been in a place where I've been getting tons of care of just being at home and
Yeah.
being with a small group of people. This gives me an opportunity to be in front of a bunch of people,
Yeah.
and this dose of being with people gives me that energy.
That's good.
Um, and so there is more layers to that,
Hmm.
but that is the top layer for me is just asking, figuring out where I'm at with where I'm when it comes to dealing with people, because everything I get to do,
Hmm.
it does involve people and loving them and
Yeah.
caring for them and giving unto them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, which going back to full circle, where you're saying, I now have to guard and protect my time with the Lord, not only as an introvert, but just as a spiritual being, because it just keeps going through my mind. In Proverbs, it says, we're tested by the praise or approval of man. And we can
Oof.
get around people and they puff our ego and they're like, you're so amazing, you're so great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to God, I'm praying, but it's more like on the fly, as
Yeah.
opposed to really disciplining my time to connect and be fueled by him as my source versus
Yes.
allowing the approval of people and applause and energy and all the things that you get from doing your destiny. I mean, there's a
Yes.
natural energy you'll get from that, and we don't even realize that we're starting to lean into our gift instead of really the gift giver and letting him be the one that gives us that source. And so if I'm not getting that margin of Sabbath in life, the windows of time to just say, hey, I need to just chill, be alone, be with family, be with the Lord, just kind of have that downtime, then in essence, I'm starting to create idols on accident
Mm.
where I'm leaning to that as my source. And then we're on that roller coaster of needing that approval, needing that next gig or set or appearance or whatever it is, because that's going to affirm me and that's going to fill me back up. Even though, and I work with a lot of Christians, they are praying. They never stopped being a Christian. They never
No.
stopped to realize that they weren't relying on the Lord's strength. They were relying on just kind of going. And the schedule gets so fast that we aren't stopping to go, hey, God, without any of this, I am completely just a kid. And I just
Wow.
need you to fill me back up and refresh me. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to look to those things instead of looking to you as my ultimate source.
Yeah. You know what's so fascinating about that, and this is gonna kind of take it a deeper level, is
Mhm.
when you do surrender that time
Yeah.
and say, okay, I am going to get my energy from just being with God and doing that every day. I've noticed for me that when I get in a good rhythm of doing that, and then life gets busy, and then I
Mhm.
don't,
Yep.
I'm a different person.
Me too.
I'm a different person.
Yeah.
I'm a different person, and that is also beautiful.
Mhm.
Being able to see the difference in being with God and living without Him,
Yeah.
it deepens how real He is, and it deepens the need for me to depend on Him, because
Yeah.
the person I am when I'm with Him versus the person I am when I'm not.
Different kind of fruit.
Man, and hey, and speaking of that, that is real because everything in life is fruit.
Yeah.
Everything,
Hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
and the fruit of my day, it will come from prayer. Period.
Hmm.
And for people that may be watching this and they may be like, "What fruit of your day? Prayer? Like getting alone with God?" All that language may sound kind of weird and
Hmm.
Christianese,
Sure.
but what's being said is when you sit and get in a place of solitude and sit with yourself quietly, inviting God into
Mm.
your sacred, intimate space,
Yeah.
He just loves you. And leaving that to go love your kids or to go meet your boss,
Yeah.
and expressing your entire day from that solitude, that place of quiet with him.
Yeah.
There is nothing that you can pay for that can recreate that for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you do it enough times, you become different, because the Bible does talk about the closer we get to him, the more we
Mhm.
become like him. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
There is a transformation that begins to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, because that yeah, the challenge for me is that I want to be there every day.
Yeah.
And from that place, man, like better music, I'm a better husband, I'm a better friend, like all of it's just better. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I signed up for when I said yes to God.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, we have that initial passion. And if we're not guarding and protecting that He is our first love, many other loves can get in the way. And maybe it's not just how much am I praying, but it's what fruit is coming out of me is the real test of, am I spending heart time with God and not just checking it off the box, doing the list, doing the thing, and then, kind of a drive through, but like, am I soaking and basking in the presence of God and letting Him just love on me? So then I can't help but love on others. And at the venue when I met you, all these people are like, what is, like, literally, what are you drinking or smoking, or what is going on with you? And I'm like, Jesus. Like, I used to be so depressed. Like, I was like a really, really unhappy person. And it wasn't overnight. And it's not this like instant, infomercial, but it's just been such a journey of Him giving me a joy that doesn't come from me and it doesn't come from my circumstances. And so I think the more that we're kind of peeling apart, a lot of times we can say, yeah, go have quiet time, have accountability, have structure and rhythm, have these safeguards. But it's like, at the end of the day, what fruit is coming out of me? Are people asking about the hope that lies within? Or am I becoming entitled and prideful? Am I starting to believe my own press of how great I am? When really, God's the one that gave you the gift, and it's through Him that He causes your gift to make room for you. And if we lose sight of that, now we're building our own kingdom instead of building His kingdom and partnering with what He's doing on the earth.
That's powerful. Yeah, and that's good news. You know,
Yeah.
that's just good news that
Yeah.
um we don't have to live a life that is
Mhm.
completely on our own.
Yeah.
And for me, when I first started making music and started going into pastoral work, um, it the my the battle within myself, the lie, or guess the lies that I was believing, is like, how could I have the audacity to do something for a really, really big God,
Mm.
that doesn't need anything from me.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a big lie that I believed going into the Christian space when I first gave my life to God.
Yeah.
And over time, surrendering my uh, you know biased and my fake humility and my thinking, surrendering all of my thinking in that very quiet, still,
Yeah.
silent place. It it is the transformative work of what Jesus died for. And that is what I advocate for. That's what I want to express to my music. That's what I want to tell
Mhm.
people when I'm on a pulpit, or when I'm with my wife. Like, man, this woman loves me because there's a God that lives in me, not because I'm just that special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. And that's the hope that I want to be able to communicate in my music. And so I know that, there's kids out there or people out there that might have a dream or want to make music or want to aspire to be something great. You will find it in Jesus, but you got to go in deep work. You got to go way deep and swim in those waters of, like,
Yeah.
the yuckiness of your soul. It's just there's just no way to shake it.
Yeah.
And for me, that comes a little bit more natural because of, like, the way God wired me and desired me, or
Mhm.
designed me. And being an artist, like, you have to dig deeper to kind of
Create
bring
art.
forth. Yes,
Mhm,
and
absolutely.
create good art. So
Yeah.
that comes a little natural to me, but I know that doesn't come as natural to others. And that's why I encourage, a great place to start is like sitting silently with your thoughts by yourself. It is so crazy. It is so crazy.
Easier
But
said than done.
it is, yo, that is so tough. It is so tough. It's
Yep.
so crazy what happens in that space. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. The things
Yeah.
that your mind will just ping pong and do. And but you learn a lot about
Yeah.
yourself in that space when you cut the
Mm.
noise off
Yeah.
and just try to grab a hold of those thoughts and say, why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking this? Why do I feel
Yeah.
this way? Um, it's just powerful. It changes you.
So good. So good. Well, I could talk to you for gajillion more hours, and I know our audience is going to have a million questions. So we're definitely having you back. Please, please, guys, subscribe and share this video. I know there's a lot of artists in lots of different spaces and performers of all kinds. And I think this would not just help them, but even entrepreneurs and family people, people on the religion mountain as well. So wherever you are, please be thinking of who you can invest into by sharing this. Also, leave us a comment and a thumbs up, a review, whatever, so that we can get the word out for 7M Culture. We love you guys, and we'll see you for the next episode. Bye.